Hi, this is Carolyne Mas, and you are listening to Retrospectives with John Broughton on KC Radio, 97.7 FM.
Firstly, though, before we talk about your music career, I've got to congratulate you on your recently acquired Bachelor of Science.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy about it, too. It took 4 very long years, and it was an amazing experience.
Right. So where is that going to lead you now?
Well, I'm not sure. I have a property in Pierce, Arizona, which is where I live, and I was thinking about becoming a nonprofit and then trying to get a grant through the USDA to start a farm, to somehow farm my property. It's a solar property, and do something sustainable, maybe, grow something that's regional, traditional crops that grow in this area. Some of them are Native American. And then through that, maybe either having a food co-op or trying to employ some of the people in the area, because it's rather poor rural area. That's considered also a food desert, meaning that for poor people, there's very limited access to fresh foods and healthy foods. So that's one thing that I want to do, and the other is to obtain my master's degree in medical nutrition.
Wonderful. Well, exciting times ahead.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. There's a lot of, I figured if I got this far, I could do 2 more years of school. It's not going to kill me, and I don't ever have to do it again.
Yeah.
And I get a master's out of it. So that's it's a source of pride for me, too. And I love school. It's been a wonderful experience, and I can't even begin to measure the amount of knowledge that I've gained just in 4 years of time.
Now, just to go back, your parents both had musical backgrounds, so was it always inevitable that you would pursue music in some way?
Well, they were both musical, but they were both very educated. So I think that I was being pushed more towards the educational route rather than going into music as a living. I think it was okay in terms of it being a hobby, but not really in terms of it being a living, unless I was going to be something like an opera singer, which is what I was going to school for. And I had been accepted at Juilliard, but decided not to go. And that was a big deal for my parents at the time. And I sort of fell out of their favor for a while until I got a record deal. But it wasn't what they had in mind. I think that what I'm doing now is probably more what they had in mind.
I was fascinated to find out your dad was the inventor of the battery charger.
Yes, and that was a big deal when I was little, too, because at one point I had a test in 6th grade that it asked, one of the questions was if a battery can be recharged by passing an electrical current through it. And I said, well, yes, of course. And I got it wrong on the test. It was like the only question I got wrong. And the next thing I knew, the newspaper was calling me. And that was actually my first interview.
Wow.
Because, obviously I brought the patent in, the next day, and, it was a big thing at the school. And I'm sure the teacher hated me, but I was right, and I was proud of my dad because he had invented. I was with him the whole time. He used to take me to work when I was like 4 or 5, when he had his own plant in Tuckahoe, New York, and he was building the prototypes inside caps, large like caps, maybe off of laundry detergent or something large like that, and building the electronics inside of stuff like that as a prototype. So that would have looked a lot like a modern day transformer that you plug into any sort of a thing like a radio or something, So that's what he was using it for, radios. And then he had the standalone chargers, which was quite a trip. Hearing his invention being advertised on the radio and stuff. It was very cool.
Now, you mentioned opera was another possibility for you. Have you ever pondered how your life may have panned out had you pursued that path musically rather than rock and roll?
Well, I did. I was for a little while a member of the Light Opera of Manhattan when I was 17. So I did pursue it for a little while, and but I was really more interested in doing Gilbert and Sullivan than I was in doing grand opera. Yeah, sometimes I wonder about it. You know, I will always have a love for opera, but I don't know. I think I wanted to sing something that I wrote. That was the major thing, and the reason why I chose what I chose is because I really had it felt as if I had something that I needed to say and express. So that route appealed to me more.
Now, you seem to have changed your home base around a bit in those early days, from New York to Pennsylvania to Los Angeles, back to New York. Was it unsettling at all at that time, or just a natural part of the journey?
A natural part of a journey, you know, absolutely. It was just somehow I had just had this thought of this is where I need to be next.
Yeah.
And you know, and I'm a lot that way today. If I really have to go somewhere and do something, I will do it. And I you know, it may sound like tomorrow I'll be in China, and if I really had to be in China somehow, I would get there. So I always had that will about me that if I said that I was going to move halfway across the country, you know, I would be doing it the next day, and I'd hitchhike if I had to. I was, you know, pretty willful.
Yeah. I was listening to that first album of yours yesterday. It's still a wonderful record and still stands up very well today. Do you remember at the time being confident that you had a record there that could really set you up career-wise?
Yes. Oh, for sure. You know, I think at that point in my life, I really hadn't experienced any sort of disappointment or opposition to the direction in which I was going. So I just saw it as a natural progression. Okay, I'm going to make this record. It's going to be successful, and then I just walk off into the sunset. You know, and you know, because everybody was very excited about it. It was almost embarrassing how excited people were about it. You know, the business people that I was dealing with, and that was a little weird for me, but I had a feeling that it was going to be successful, but, you know, I just didn't know how much.
Do you think perhaps in hindsight all that hype was more of a hindrance than a help?
Yes, and I do remember a guy being fired because of that and at Mercury, and it was because there was so much hype surrounding the record that they went to the larger markets and ignored the smaller ones. And what happened was that the larger markets didn't like the overhype, and the smaller ones couldn't be fallen back on because they had been left out of the picture from the beginning, so they were resentful. So the record sort of like went up in the sky and then just dropped.
What about confidence on stage? Were you a pretty confident stage performer right from the beginning?
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah. I mean, going back to when I was in high school, and I did a lot of theater, and certainly I had a lot of theater experience with the Light Opera of Manhattan. And, you know, so getting up on a stage was probably more comfortable for me than any place. You know, I think I lived for that because I guess I just felt I had a lot to say, and I needed an arena in which to do it.
It was a very male-dominated field that you were entering at that time. Do you think the music world was ready for you at that particular time? Do you think maybe you've been a big victim of bad timing?
Oh, yeah, of course. I really, you know, I don't really blame, or I don't really want to blame anyone in particular, because it was just like a perfect storm from the beginning. I honestly think that people just didn't know what to do with me. And if they had the slightest indication that maybe they were wrong, they would quickly try to go in another direction. Well, this record's too soft. Now we have to do another record. Oh, that record's too hard, so we have to come back this way. And instead of just allowing me to be who I was, I think they were frantic trying to peg me in some way, and that was probably the biggest mistake they made, because there were a lot of things that I was able to do, and I think they missed out in that respect. They could have, if they had known what to do with me, they would have made money. I do think so.
You actually recorded that first album before the Mercury deal, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I signed it like in June or something like that, and I was already in the studio beforehand. I mean, they were just so anxious to record me because they were afraid that another label was going to snatch me up. And I mean, it was ridiculous. It was kind of unheard of that you'd already be in the studio and you hadn't really even signed. What would have happened if I had said, "I don't think so.
Yeah.
I'm out of here"?
Probably would have been a good thing in hindsight.
Yeah, you're right. I should have waited for the right label, because that it was really the wrong label to sign with. They had a lot of changes, that would continue to plague them for years, and there were other labels interested. And I think my manager kind of maybe he went with the deal that offered the most money at the time. That's what I'm thinking, because that would have been the sort of decision that a manager, I would have expected a manager to have made. Maybe not necessarily the best deal, but the most money offered, which I never saw anyway. So, but that seems to be the a manager's job is to get you the better deal. Maybe not the best one for you personally.
It certainly did seem that Mercury didn't really know what to do with you. As you said, after that first record, how heavy were they in trying to influence your musical directions for the following albums?
Very. And by then, the guy that had signed me was gone. The president had changed, and he was the one that loved Southside Johnny, and he loved me. That was Bob Sherwood. And Steve Katz, who had been in Blood, Sweat, and Tears, he was the A&R guy. Those are the guys that signed me. And I don't know what happened, but suddenly they weren't there. And, I was so busy trying to deal with everything that, I don't know the details of what happened. But I do know that the week Hold On came out was the same week that they moved from Chicago to New York. So I remember David Landau saying that record never even got out of the box.
Wow.
So that was they were, but at the same time, they made me so miserable about it. So it was, boy, if I had been at a job and I behaved that way, I would have been fired long ago, because they were very intent on telling me what to put on the album and what to put on the cover, and then they turned around and ignored it. So, I mean, the ads were horrendous. I remember at the time, some things are better the second time around, like You Love Europe and Carolyne Mas. Can you imagine that? Love Europe and Carolyne Mas.
Wow.
Crazy. But, they had little understanding of I do remember, though, they wanted a harder record than the first album. So that album was basically done live in the studio. And they didn't want me to put I'm Lucky, which is a song, I think I've stuck it on an outtake somewhere that is available. I'm not sure, as an outtake somewhere on something. But I have this Dropbox thing that I have people subscribe to, and I think some of those outtakes are in that collection. But anyway, we did a recording of it, but it never made it on the album because they wanted You Cannot Win If You Do Not Play, Steve Forbert's song.
Uh-huh.
So I remember arguing with them about that. I guess they were thinking it was going to sell records because he was just coming off of Romeo's tune. But it ended up not really mattering because they never promoted the album anyway.
Yeah.
And then they said it was too hard afterwards.
Goodness me.
I mean, it's not like it's hard rock or anything, but it was the way we sounded live because it was live in the studio. And I think that there had been a little bit of a discrepancy between the way my first record sounded and then the way we sounded live, because it was, a much more ballsy show than the record would have indicated, which was, rather slick.
They seemed to be a label that was really in a confused state of mind at that time. I know Graham Parker was famous for having troubles with them around that same time. Yeah,
before actually, and I should have known. And I knew that that album. I think it was like slightly before. And I should have known better because I was a fan of his and I knew that song. I just should have figured it out.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of was that like the album after Heat Treatment?
I think, you might be right there, yeah.
So I remember covering Turned Up Too Late from that album. And I loved him. And, so I should have known better, but I was so busy again playing that I trusted my manager to make the right choices for me. And I was only 23. I mean, stuff happens, and unfortunately, kids today, I think I said recently on my blog, on my website, that kids today have the opportunity to become more business savvy because of the internet. So, hopefully this doesn't happen as much to people today, but back when I was recording, I trusted my manager, who was like my parents to me,
Yeah.
And I thought he was like, Dad's going to look after it and I'm going to be fine. But, that wasn't really the case.
Now, we talked about the hype earlier, and one piece of hype that did the rounds about you at the time were people labelling you as a female Bruce Springsteen. How did that sit with you at the time?
Oh, horribly. And I'll tell you a funny story. Actually, the first time, and a fan brought this up to me not that long ago, that he remembers a New York Tech gig I did in April, I think, of 1979, and it was the first time that was shown, like it was on the window somewhere of the place where I was playing. And I remember David Landau, who's John Landau's brother, pulling my manager aside, because David was my guitar player at the time, and saying, "You got to stop this now," something to that effect. I'd never seen Bruce play. I was not a fan, as I said before. I was more a Graham Parker fan. And in fact, it wasn't until I was signed to Mercury that I actually even saw Southside Johnny, so I wasn't really familiar with that whole Jersey scene. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it would plague me, and I can't tell whether it came from my manager or whether then the press started to pick up on it, but it became so bad that I remember doing an in-store record appearance, it was a tour of a record store, and they took me down to like the warehouse, and there were all these people. It was like in St. Louis or something. And there were all these people, and they were saying to me, well, how does it feel to be the female Bruce Springsteen? And I asked actually where the bathroom was, and I left through the loading dock.
Wow.
And I went to a bar where there was a payphone, and I remember calling Landau because I was freaking out because I just couldn't take it anymore. I wasn't, the Bruce Springsteen thing was ridiculous. It was embarrassing. I didn't know how to react to it. And I don't think that at that point it could be stopped. I mean, it was crazy. I remember doing an interview in Paris, and I was with my husband at the time. And the guy was asking, isn't it true that John Landau is in your band and he's David Landau's in your band and he's John Landau's brother? Doesn't Kristen Seal, your sax player, the same initials as Clarence Clemens? And at that point, my husband leaned over to me and he goes, "We got to get out of here. They're queuing up the Mitch Ryder medley."
Goodness me.
And like we split at that point. Yeah. It was ridiculous, and I hadn't even seen him play. It wasn't until the end of 1980 that David Landau took me to a couple of shows, because I guess Bruce at that time, I guess he was just then playing right after The River was made. So I did finally see a show, and I was so reluctant to go because I up to that point I could tell people, look, I have never even seen him play, so please leave me alone. So, I couldn't really say that again after I'd seen him, but, he was great and everything. I was flattered at that point, but it was, it could have been a good thing, could have been a bad thing. I always think it would have been nice to have been looked at as myself.
Yeah.
and certainly not compared to another man. But then again, I don't, it's sort of open-minded in a way, to compare a woman to a man. I mean, it's sort of like I think they were really talking about the music and the performing, and they were seeing beyond what gender we were, just as musicians and performers. In some respects, that's a good thing.
Yeah. I guess the one thing you'd be thankful for, there wasn't the social media around then as there is now to spread that sort of hype. It would have been totally unbearable.
Oh, absolutely. But I would have been able to stand up for myself too. Oh, I would have given them their, their spiel back at them, because the record label, I would have definitely said something to their face on my Twitter or whatever. So I think that they should be glad that there wasn't social media at the time.
You seem to be more appreciated outside of America than in your homeland, particularly in Germany, where you've always had a strong following. Any theories on why that happened?
Yeah, it happened because I did television. It happened because I did Rock Palast.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the live record, Phonogram was really, they were, Deutsche Phonogram, great label, very well respected, very together. So, they kind of knew what they were doing. Canada, too, Phonogram in Canada was a very together and established company. And I also did television there. So it was really the key was television, because it's like, okay, we can't explain this woman. You just have to see her for yourself.
Uh-huh.
And that works. Television does work. And at the time when I was, making records in the States, there really wasn't anything other than Saturday Night Live. But by the time my record came out, the show was already, as was explained to me at the time, the show was already having to have bigger acts on to try to keep for their ratings. And that was what was explained to me at the time when I was thinking of being on that show.
So
that was that time.
When the deal with Mercury ended, did you have any idea or plans afoot what to do with the next phase of your career?
No, and I regret that. I think that I felt more or less frozen. And at some point, my manager, I believe he had me in so much debt that I remember he had me co-signed a loan with American Express that he used to keep me on the road, or so I thought, or that's what I was told. And I remember getting a phone call from them in the early 80s, and they told me that they would find out wherever I was playing and they would take the money from the box office.
Oh, my God.
So I wasn't really allowed to make any money that could be seen. So I stopped playing because I didn't really know what to do. And I think in a lot of ways I regret that I didn't go back to school at that time, because I think it would have been the wise thing to do, to sort of regroup and maybe get an education in the meantime. But instead, I probably had, my dark night of the soul episode at that point. It was a really troubling time for me. It was the first time I'd ever experienced failure.
Yeah. There's been a number of eventful moments in your life, and none more so than being attacked and stabbed by an intruder in your own home. A near-death and certainly life-changing experience for anyone. How did it affect you in the way you changed as a person after that?
After that, I was pretty paranoid for a while because they never found out who did it. So, it was difficult because the police were investigating pretty much everyone I knew. So it was like, oh no, he did it. Oh no, he did it. So after a while it was pretty miserable. And to have to move back with your parents at that stage in their life is not fun. So it was difficult. And I had a difficult time. I know I had a difficult time sleeping for a while, but it was good for me at that point to move out to California because doing that then eventually led me to Germany, which was a wonderful experience. And I think that moving there allowed me to heal. And I got to play again at some great shows.
Was it also liberating in a way to be able to make records away from the shackles of a major label?
There were shackles there too, because everybody, because of mass hysteria, people wanted me to write another Sitting in the Dark, or David Orlando and I actually wrote Standing in the Light as an answer to Sitting in the Dark, which is a pretty good song. It's on a live double CD that was released there. It was more or less returning the joke. But, can you write another Thomas Dunstan's Revenge? Can you write another Running from the High Life? And I was thinking I was 23 when I wrote that. I'm 35 now. I'm not the same person. So there was a lot of pressure in that sense, too. I also, there's an album called Reason Street that I recorded while I was there that was absolutely disliked by the record company and by the manager I had at the time, because it was acoustic and kind of, a little bit Beatle-y. And I mean, I actually do Cry Baby Cry, a cover of that on there. But it was imaginative and interesting, and an evolution, I thought, because I don't think a musical artist should stand still and just keep repeating the same song over and over again. You become a cover band of yourself. Mm-hmm. So I was just trying to evolve, or so I thought, and that wasn't working out, so I came back to the States.
I saw an article the other day, and in there you're quoted as saying that you feel you'd be a happier person today had you never made a record. Do you still feel that way?
That's very funny. That's a tough one, because ignorance is bliss, isn't that?
Yeah.
So in some ways probably. But I think that in a lot of ways I wouldn't have developed into the same kind of person I am. And I think that difficult situations, if you can deal with them with grace, can make you a better person. So maybe I would have missed that opportunity. Without it, there's a wonderful musical called The Fantastic that has a song in it called Try to Remember. And one of the lines is, without a hurt, the heart is hollow. So, I do think that the pain that might have come from some of those experiences has made me more loving, if anything, and more compassionate.
Well, just talking to you now, I don't sense a person who sounds bitter or angry about having been cheated out of what might have been. You seem to have built up a resilience. Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that you have to choose at some point whether you're going to enjoy your life or not. You have to move on and let go of things, because you're going to miss what's happening in the moment. And the world is just filled with so many beautiful things that are trying to get your attention. And if you're mired in the past or anxious about the future, you miss that moment. I remember, I guess it was, trying to think of it, it wasn't a haiku, but it was a story, and it was about a guy that's being chased by lions to the side of a cliff, and he's kind of hanging by a branch, and below him he sees where he's going to fall. But in that moment, he's looking at the branch, and there's like a strawberry on it, and it's so beautiful. And that's sort of supposed to represent, how we are, caught between future and past, and how, when we're, but we can savor that moment of the present, that's there for us. So I sort of have learned to try to live my life that way. And I think, of course, having a child makes a big difference. I have a son who's 17 now, and I have to be that person for him too. So I sort of became an adult. I had to become an adult and try to find ways to lead my life that were examples to him. Be a living example.
I saw that not too long ago you pretty much lost the ability to play guitar due to an arthritic condition. Tell us about that and the road to recovery from that.
Yeah, actually, for about 10 years, I worked as a caregiver. Around 2002, it was the same year my son was born. My father died, and he had been living very nearby his sister, who was his older sister. My dad and his sister were really super close. And she had Alzheimer's, but she was still living on her own. And I kept telling my parents, that she's going to need care, but they didn't want to see it. And when my dad died, she ran away to New York with no luggage and just a credit card because she was so confused. And I actually hunted her down and found her in a hotel and had the police Baker Act her, which is, they can put somebody in the hospital against their will for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and collected her the next day in New York. I don't know how she managed to get a taxi from the airport to the hotel without any cash. I will never know that story. But from that moment on, I became her caregiver. I did not want to see her in a nursing home. I had always admired her. She was a wonderful woman who worked as an economic attaché to the United States in Mexico City. And so she was an idol. She was a fantastic pianist. And so I cared for her for 8 years. And in that time, she broke a hip and was unable to walk. So I would have to change her diapers. And I did this for 8 years. And I developed arthritis in my hands during that time. And by the time she passed away, I then started to take care of my mother, who also had Alzheimer's but was mobile, and she wasn't as bad. And then in 2010, my mother died. And I then tried to get back into music, but by then I was having a lot of problems with my hands, to the point where the last gig I played in January in Italy, in January of 2014, I had to wear a brace on my right hand to immobilize my thumb. It started mostly in my thumbs, and it was, again, try to change a woman's diaper against her will.
Yeah.
Several times a day, for 8 years.
Yeah.
And this is what will happen. So, I love that I had the experience. In some way, the pain is a reminder of the depth of the experience. I have no animosity about that either. And in many ways, I think it led me to where I am, having graduated college. So so that's what happened with that. And if I might add something to that, during the period of time when I was unable to work, I went on disability for my hands. Mm-hmm. Every job I'd ever had involved my hands, whether it was teaching cooking or working as a caregiver, all the other little side jobs I had in the times when I was playing music. And I fell behind on my property taxes. So there's somebody who took a lien out on my property. He paid the taxes, and so I have to now answer to him. And actually, we've worked out I'm the only person he's ever worked with that he has this process with. I don't know if they do this where you live, but in the States, at least in most of the states, if you owe property taxes, an investor can come along, purchase those property taxes, and then charge you whatever he wants and take your house.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a predatory thing that people do for money. So anyway, I managed to establish a relationship with this guy, and he's been fantastic. But it's been so stressful. I've actually gone to school and gotten a degree since I started talking to him. That's how long it's been.
Wow.
And every once in a while, I take my school money, whatever refund I have left from my financial aid, or whatever I'm able to raise. And actually, right now, I have a GoFundMe that is on my website, CarolynMas.com. And I'm trying to raise money. I have the last $12,000 that I owe him but I'm only trying to raise half of that now, hoping that I'll either get a job or start my business or have a grant or be able to work out the other portion of it on my own. So that's why I wanted to say something, in case somebody wants to go there and make a donation, because I've agreed to pay him $1,000 a month for the next, until it's paid off.
Okay.
But I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I want to start a business with this property. I want to help people in the rural area where I live. It's important to me. It's important for my son to see this as an example, because it also teaches accountability, responsibility, and this is my home, and I'm not leaving, and I don't care how hard I have to work to make that happen. So I'm actually pursuing my master's while looking for a job and trying to start a business at the same time.
Wow.
And I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it too. And it's going to feel really good when I finally give him the last dollar. And I think that he'll get a kick out of it too.
Yeah.
Because he's been a really nice guy, and he's learned a lot from this process, I think, too.
It's an incredible story, yours. Have you ever considered putting it down in book form?
Yeah, I have. And as a matter of fact, I've actually been writing a lot. I have the Aging Well blog that's part of the valleynaturals.org, which is the nonprofit that I want to start. And I have been writing entries there, but I've also started to write in my blog on my website. And I recently did an entry on some of the things, the people that control you when you're in the business. When you're a young woman in particular, and kind of you get sort of surrounded by men who insulate you, or who think they're insulating you, or say they are, but they're really controlling you.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit about that. And there is a friend who's wanted to make a documentary for a while, but I think it's just a matter of finding the right people, and maybe there's just not enough money to pay people to do it. But he's doing it out of his heart. Howard Leibowitz is his name. Wonderful guy. Love him to pieces. Know him since I was a kid, really, in my 20s. And I've said no a ton of times when he wanted to do this project, but I finally said yes, because I figured, my God, it occurred to me when I graduated that it's 40 years ago that I made that first album.
Oh, yeah.
And I bet you anything, May 6th, the day that I graduated, I bet you anything I was in the studio on May 6th in 1979. I bet you anything. Yeah. That same, and little would you're going to graduate from college in 40 years from today. If somebody had said that, I never would have believed it. But, it's funny that way. So he's wanted to do that, and I think that it's a perfect time. It's a perfect ending, right?
Yeah, to absolutely.
Getting a diploma and 40 years later. I don't know, there's a quote. Let me see if I can find it. I had it put on my mortarboard when I graduated, if you give me a chance to find it. I think it's something like, no star is gone no star is ever gone once we have seen. We can always be what we might have been.
Ah.
Isn't that great?
That's lovely, yeah.
Yeah, it's a woman. I think her name is Adelaide Proctor. I think that's her name. For sure, her last name is Proctor. Her initials are A.A. Proctor. And I had found the quote some weeks before, and my friend put it on my mortarboard because it meant everything to me. Because graduating, my grandfather became, that's my mom's dad, became an attorney at 72. And I have this picture of him with his cap and gown. And I've always thought it was really cool and something to aspire to. And I've always believed that just keep going. Why should you stop? Why should you think that I can't do this because I'm this age? I mean, you're going to be that age anyway. so might as well do it with a diploma, and you get to wear a silly hat. And you know, and when I get my master's, I get to wear a different kind of hat, you know, and it's all kind of fun and amazing, because these are accomplishments that you will have for the rest of your life, which
Absolutely.
is something I never really had from music. I never won a Grammy. I never got any kind of an award that would have made my parents happy. You know, that I could put on a shelf and show people. I mean, today anybody can make a CD or a record, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, not everybody gets an award. So, but with school, to suddenly be, you know, have invitations from all these honor societies and get this scholarship to go to Africa, and I got a scholarship to go to Cuba, and it was like, wow, if you do well, you get stuff. You know, in education, you get rewarded and recognized by people. So it was a real interesting experience. You know, I got the kind of permanent recognition that you don't really seem to get in music.
Mm. One last question before I let you go, Carol. If you could go back to May 6, 1979 and talk to your younger self, and only had time for one piece of advice to give her, what do you reckon it'd be?
Go to school. Stay in school, get a degree to fall back on.
Yeah.
Just because you have a thing, you know, it won't make you fail. That was my thought. If you have a net, you're going to fall. And that I think a lot of people think that. Oh, I don't want a safety net. I'm white knuckling this baby, you know. And you know, but that's silly, because I think that there are a lot of people. You always see when a musician or actress or actor has gotten their degree before going into it, I always think that they're being wise.
Yeah.
Because your moment in the sun is a very short one compared to the entirety of your life. So, you know, and it's not, you shouldn't just be a one-trick person either, right? You should learn to do other things, because it makes you a more of a whole person. There's other things to life besides music.
Absolutely. So true. Hey, Carolyne, thanks so much for your time. It's been a real treat to catch up with you. Thank you for some wonderful music that you did give us through the years, and congratulations on your new beginnings.
Thank you. And I think I saw you on Facebook. I have 5,000 friends now, but I'm going to friend you when somebody drops off.
Oh, okay.
I found you.
Yeah, I'm there.
And I tried to friend you, but I can't. I don't know. They had that tap on friends. But I will find you again, my friend.
No, we'll stay in touch for sure.
That way.
Yeah, and I'll be certain to mention your GoFundMe page a few times on air as well.
Yes. Oh, thank you. I really, really appreciate that. I made a small video for it that was a lot of fun. It was a PowerPoint, and I put Still Sane in the background, and I made a video from it. It's kind of cool.
Oh, check that. It's on YouTube, is it?
Yes, it's on YouTube, but it's also on my website.
Oh, lovely. I'll check that out too.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Carol. It's been wonderful talking to you.
It's been likewise wonderful to talk to you, too. And you have a good time there in tomorrow.
I will do. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All the best. Bye.
You too.